Good morning and welcome to the Home Center Sunday morning service, September 12th, I believe, yes. Now from the Home Center ministerial team, our minister of prayer, Reverend Joe Pinecoffer, has provided this prayer for us this morning. Still your mind. See the beauty and light that is within each of us. Listen to fully understand the message presented this morning. May Spirit guide our thoughts this morning, and may our light create a peaceful environment to greet one another in. Remember, everyone here, whether in body or in spirit, is so much more in the love and light of God. Thank you, Reverend Connie, and love from our Heart Center as you open our service this morning. We thank you for the time and effort you spend each week, week after week, in creating spiritual messages for us. To all who share their time and finances with the Home Center, thank you and bless you, for your assistance will allow us to continue offering our messages of light to all. So it is, in God and Christ, love and light. Amen. And now I will turn the podium over to Reverend Connie.
Have to get my pages in order here to begin. This morning I'd like to begin with a little story that I heard that was about Charles Fillmore, the founder of Unity. Missouri was going through a terrible drought this one summer, and the farmers were really hurting. And even Unity Village had its own garden to feed its employees, and it was drying up. So Mr. Fillmore called his people together for a prayer for rain. The only person that showed up with an umbrella was a little girl. Mr. Fillmore told them, "You have to have faith. Faith like this little child. True believe that we can bring forth rain by asking the Creator, God. Please come back tomorrow and bring your umbrellas." Do you have your umbrella out? Are you praying for rain with us? Reverend Madge put forth a really good message from Spirit about using our tools, our metaphysical tools, to bring about rain. I found myself in the middle of the night last night awake and thinking about the fact we wanted a rain that would put out the fire, but not so strong that it might cause flooding. And I began to hear raindrops falling on my roof and the rain running down our gutters outside. We need to visualize, we need to work at bringing forth this rain. I ask you to join me in any way that is appropriate for you. And now I want to move into my message this morning. I'm going to talk to you about symbolism. The reason I came to this topic was that I have been looking into the symbolism of dreams and paying attention to the symbolism of my dreams. But I'm going to talk to you about that, and I'm going to also mention about the number 7. This whole event that we're involved in right now with the fires and the wind began on September 7th. So we're going to look at the number 7 as a symbol. We're going to look at the east wind as a symbol, because this wind came out of the east. And we're going to look at fire. I want to talk to you for a moment about what I've experienced with my dreams. On August 28th, I woke up from a dream where someone was telling me, "It's time to pack your bags. It's time to pack your bags. It's time to pack your bags." The message came 3 times. And I thought, wow, that's interesting, because I had been asking the night before for Spirit to give me a dream about what was coming in the future. Along with this, I remembered that prior to the message of packing your bags, I had also had somebody telling me that they had been told that people were putting big black piles of poo all over the place. Well, that was rather strange, but I wrote them down in my dream book. Later on, I had a morning where I woke up and could remember a series dream. It began with seeing my husband pouring sugar on 2 floorboards. And then it shifted to having a conversation with a group of women. And then it made a very quick, rapid change where a great big semi-truck with a yellow cab was just bearing down on me. And then I woke up from that dream. And again, I wasn't quite sure what that was all about, but I felt the number 2 was important to remember, but I wrote it down. The last dream I'll tell you about, I had this Wednesday morning. I had walked out to our mailbox and found inside this square map. It was on a piece of cardboard. And as I'm looking at it, I'm trying to decide what it is a map of. It starts to kind of disappear. It looks like a typical road map, but I happen to notice over in the left-hand corner the name Manola, which is actually a town here in Oregon. I might not be pronouncing it quite correctly. And I thought, well, I wonder if this was a map of Oregon. That's what went through my mind. In looking back over my dream book, I seemed to realize that this was a message about what was happening. This began on September 7th, as I said on Monday. My husband and I happened to be out in our backyard working when I happened to look off to the east and noticed all of this smoke clouds, which isn't unusual. That's towards Portage Road from where we live, and oftentimes the farmers are burning their fields at this time of year. But I didn't feel like that was what it was, even though I mentioned that to my husband. I felt like it was something else, and I said to him, I don't think they would be allowing field burning right now. And I wonder if this is some other kind of fire. But it really wasn't until the next day, and we woke up, and the sun was just barely coming up, and it was really dark, cloudy, smoky outside. And then it turned this brilliant orange, and then red. I mean, the whole thing was like somebody turned on a red light. And then it eventually faded into this golden light. I told my husband I thought we ought to take a look at the local news, which we did. And we found out that there was this fire. And that some people were getting the message that they better be prepared, they better pack up, pack the bags, because any moment now they might be receiving a phone call or a knock on their door that they had to leave right now. That was a level 3 alert. That was pack your bags number 1 for that day. Then I received a phone call later from my daughter-in-law saying, Mom, this fire is only 13 miles from us. We're starting to pack up. You need to pack a bag. And we need to think about where we could go. Do you have Aunt Robin's number? She lives down in Riddle. It looks like that's a safe place to go. It wasn't but a few minutes later I received a second phone call. This one was from Reverend Madge, and she was telling me that she was packing bags, getting ready to leave if she had to, and suggested that I do the same thing. there were my 3 pack up your bag messages. And I talked to her a little bit about that and decided maybe I should look at my dream book. How about that big yellow truck bearing down on us? Could that have been that day where we had this yellow filtered light coming through all that smoke that was barreling down on us from this fire? Possibly. And then one morning we got up and were listening to the news, and they mentioned Malina, thank you. I was trying to get the name of that town. I'm getting it mixed up with Minolta because this was in that same area, but they had been given a warning that they needed to pack up and get ready to move out. So there was all of those dreams that I'd had over the last month. I certainly didn't feel like I was having any kind of premonition, but I think it could have been an answer to what's coming in the future, certainly. Assuming that our higher self uses symbols to give us messages, like the ones I received through my dreams, what might be the symbols of the number 7 for September 7th, the east wind and fire? What could they be relaying to us, I wondered. That's when I decided to look at these symbols as part of my message this morning. These fires that just seemed to come out of nowhere were blown across our state and others by a very strong, rare east wind, they were telling us. And this was birthed or began on September 7th, Monday afternoon. Actually, I think the fires may have begun a little before that, but that's when we first noticed it here in Salem. 7 is the number of wisdom, knowledge, and expansion. It also represents reflection, individualism, and mysticism. Again, this began on the 7th day of September, that this was birthed. So one of the books that I pulled out and looked at is called the Encyclopedia of Birthdays. And in this particular book, it talked about this birthday being the one of a tenacious person. Tenacity was the main word on this, which means to stay, that you push forward with something and you stand right behind that, right through the whole of it, no matter what. And that seemed to be the way this wind was reacting. It was pushing forward, burning everything in its path. Another aspect given for being born on this date is the great challenge of being merciful to oneself and others. And certainly we saw that happening too, because I remember listening to these people, this one couple, talking about the fact that all they had done was simply to pack a bag with only the essentials and just leave everything behind, because that was just material stuff. That didn't matter. Their life was more important. They were being merciful to themselves. And certainly the people that were there, the Red Cross, the firefighters, and others that were helping people to find a place of shelter, food, and so forth, were being merciful to those people. There was also a warning on this description for this birthday, saying, one born on this day should not make enemies because they can block their way to success. Two things that came to my mind with this warning are simply not to blame others for what has happened with this event. Not making them enemies by blaming them, whether they're guilty or not. and not to lead us away from our goal for this world right now, which is to come to a place of loving kindness to one another, compassion, love for our fellow man, and peace for our world. Along one side, we're given different symbols related to this birthday as well. And one of those symbols happened to be a tarot card, which is the chariot, which is a symbol for resilience. We have to be resilient at this time. We have to pull upon our inner strength to keep ourselves centered and moving forward in the light and love of God. That is the duty of a light warrior or a light worker, which many of us today are. That's why we're here. It goes on to say that the power thought for this number 7 day is, as I send out loving calmness, all those around me are inspired. I think this is telling us to stay centered in peace and calmness within our own selves, because doing so will inspire others to be able to do that as well. Are we being given a lesson from God or our collective consciousness through this event? Perhaps we are. Let's move on to the symbol of the east wind now. I had decided to look at a particular book, which is Kabbalah 365. And I found in it this birthday card that had been given to me by my children a number of years ago. The front of it is actually a painting done by a local artist of 4 horses of different colors. But on the inside is a caption about the 4 winds. And it reads like this: the 4 directions, north, south, east, and west, represent powers or aspects of the world which influence our lives and guide us on our journeys. From the east comes the message of new beginnings, shown through the red of the rising sun. Is this possible to consider that this east wind that blew the fire and smoke across our homeland and caused a very ominous red morning glow from the rising sun could be an omen or a sign that we have a new beginning happening? In going to the book Kabbalah 365, which deals with the ancient Jewish mysticism, I found this quote about the east wind. As living entities, the 4 winds possess their own temperament. The east wind is always good, and it even quiets the other winds when they get out of hand. Whoa, wait a minute. This rare event, this east wind that was out of season, that we just experienced, didn't seem good and quieting at all. In fact, it came in like some evil devil and had a right nasty temper tantrum. That's what it did. But just maybe it was telling us to be on the lookout for evil winds, maybe afoot here and needing quieting. Perhaps an evil wind is a metaphor, and this quote may shine some light on what it's meant, what it means, what it represents. I remembered when I was getting ready for this message that I had gone through a bunch of quotes that I've saved over the years. And one of them was from Anna, the grandmother of Jesus. And she says this about evil. First of all, big E dash veil. An energy veil composed of mental and emotional obstructions that veil one's true nature the absolute which abides within and beyond all space and time. Could this veil we create with our thoughts have been used against us by those who understand, she goes on to say, this obstruction that humanity has put in place? Has it been used to manipulate and control us? Is it something that has been put in place as part of the game of life for us to overcome? What are your thoughts on this? She asks. Let's move on now to consider the symbol of fire. For information on this, I chose to go to a tarot deck that I have called the Sacred Circle deck. This deck is kind of based more on the Druidic Celtic tradition. And the cards of wands, which represent fire, have a border around them of flames with a central figure in the middle and a word, a descriptive word at the top. It was interesting to note when I took out the Seven of Wands that this card had rivalry written at the top of it. A meaning that is given for this card reads, you will reach new levels of imagination and creativity to get your ideas accepted by your rivals. Perhaps we could view this message being given by this fire that we need to reach new levels of imagination and creativity to get out ideas that will be accepted by those that wish to control us and keep us down. And in order to do this, we need to think more kindly of ourselves and all others. Certainly fire represents a change of one substance into another when that substance is seemingly consumed by a light. It's a change that occurs through the power of light. This is what is going on in our world today and going on within us. There's a change that is happening, and it is happening very powerfully through the power of God, energy, light. When I pulled out this book on the Sacred Circle cards and my deck of cards and opened my card box, out came the Two of Wands. And on the caption at the top, it reads courage. That was its main descriptive word, which is certainly is a very powerful message for what we need to have right now. We need to have courage to face this new challenge that came so on the heels of this big virus pandemic incident or event we've been through, and was seeming to start to come to some kind of conclusion when here we get this fire and this big east wind. Well, this is exactly the courage that we need to stay in love, unite, and rebuild a better, more peaceful home for ourselves. God speaks to us in symbols if we can choose to see and listen to them. I'd like to go to one other of my quotes that I found. This one is from Sean Stephenson, and it reads, doubt is a virus that attacks our self-esteem, our productivity, and our confidence. Faith that you and your life are perfectly unfolding is the strongest vaccine. And I add the word all. We have to come back to ourselves, to our true selves, to our faith, to our knowingness, to our courage that comes from the strength within us. Let us all remember this. I want to thank all of you for listening this morning and receiving this message. And I remind you to get out your umbrellas and to think rain. Thank you very much for tuning us in. And I bid you all a wonderful week ahead with rain coming.
Arms around the world, around each other. Arms around the world, sisters and brothers. Arms around the world and we discover. Arms around the world, there is no other. So let us join in love and peace. A world as it was meant to be. And we will